Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Mythology Monday. Today we are going to be talking about another line of sorcerers in my world of Taurean, and that line today will be the line of Salem. Now we'll start with the basics. So Salem's line mark is a pair of flames here, or a really big flame with a tiny flame inside of it. Their color is a dark red, so a maroon sort of color, and their founder was the Salem witches, and we will get into how they got to Taurean in just a minute. But as you can probably guess by this lovely symbol, their powers revolve around fire and also explosions, because that's what happens with fire. Boop. But yes, so all their powers are dictated and are controlled around fire. Now, the Salem witches. So, the story behind how the Salem witches found their way into the world of Taurean is very simple. Clearly, when they were being hunted by the humans in the human world, the world that you and I all live in, they were obviously not all caught. And so the Salem witches, especially think about the methods that were used by the mortals. That's what sorcerers refer to humans in my book, is mortals. The methods used by the mortals were slightly ridiculous. You were thrown into the water, and if you sunk, you were a witch. But if you floated, no, if you sunk, you were innocent. If you floated, you were a witch. So what does floating on water have to do with being witches? Most people are buoyant enough with body fat that they float. So that was really not the best way. And as for torturing the information out of people, we've learned again and again and again through studies that people will admit to anything under enough duress and torture. So clearly their methods were flawed, which means a great deal of the actual witches around then got away. And so they banded together the same way that a lot of the other sorcerer lines banded together when they lived around mortals and they were different. As we know again and again through history, humans are afraid of things that are different and they will go after different. So what the Salem witches did is they banded together and they got out of town. So they left and they managed to get themselves to Taurean. Took lots of tries, took a lot of their magic and powers, but they made it together to Taurean as a coven. So when they arrived in Taurean, they were a group of multiple witches who had all made their way there. Now, they became referred to as sorcerers because that's how you refer to people of magical descent in my world: sorcerer, sorceress, and sorceress. And so the Salem witches became the Line of Salem and were a large group of sorceresses who were now able to have their pick of the men in the world and began the Line of Salem. Because they arrived at the world in a large group of sorceresses, they are one of the larger and more prolific lines, because when you started with one person, it was a lot harder to develop those powers and get a lot of children out of it. But when you started with a large group of people already, the line has grown significantly. It has led to some very powerful sorcerers. They learned very quickly that bonding with particular other lines made for stronger and more powerful children. For example, if a Salem sorceress would bond with an Aries sorcerer, Aries is explosive and chaos, and Salem is fire, and that those two come together and make extreme power. And so they learned quickly which lines made them have stronger children and which ones had not as strong children. And then they were able to kind of pick their partners in order to ensure the children they had would grow in power rather than lessening their powers. And so the other thing that is fantastic about Salem is, as I said with the Poseidon line, when children are learning their Salem powers, because they are so dangerous and chaotic and can cause a lot of problems when they're learning them, a lot of Salem children or youngsters will train with Poseidon sorcerers. So in the event that something goes wrong, they have the water sorcerers there in order to combat what they have caused. Now, because they are a fire line, they live in a part of the land that is more rocky, it's closer to the water, in order to protect their territory in the event that things get out of hand if a lot of youngsters are not controlling their powers as well as they should be. There are other safety measures too that exist in the world of Taurean. There is a bracelet you will learn about in book 2 where it has a special metal in it that takes away their powers, and so the adults in this world will put those on the Salem children if they find that the children are not learning to manage their powers as efficiently as they should be. But so the Salem line is a lot of fun. They tend to be rather aggressive as far as sorcerers go, but I guess that's just because they're so hot-blooded and hot-tempered. But yeah, so definitely if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do. You don't want to miss any more of the fun in my different sorcerer worlds. And yeah, I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you next week. Have a nice Monday.